Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Redistricting Committee meeting to order. If you all received your minutes from last week's meeting, I assume. If you have, I'd entertain a motion there.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any question or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All that oppose. Well, I certainly appreciate the phone calls and some cards and stuff I got. Let me tell you, I wouldn't wish the kidney stones on anybody. So if you've got a choice to have them or not have them, don't have them. So I had a little surgery there with kidney stones last week, actually Wednesday, and thought I'd be fine for Wednesday night's meeting. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, I was watching at some points, and some points I wasn't. So appreciate the dedication of the Redistricting Committee. Y'all talked about quite a few things. We've got quite a few things to talk about here tonight. Goes back to the motion, I need to say first, Miss Nicole Lester is not going to be here. She's got two kids that are in some church programs tonight, and definitely that is a major thing that she needs to be at, and so I know she'll be having a good time, and the kids will be doing a good job. So we'll miss her tonight, and she's got a letter for later on for us. But the who else are we missing? Mr. Evans, he may come in, but we have a quorum, so we're moving on. To start with, the motion that we are assigned to, and I think it may have been pulled up, may not. I might be repeating some stuff that we did last week, y'all did, so if it is, I apologize, but if not, then let me read this motion that was from Commissioner Cook, and then Commissioner Matthew Young seconded the motion. And this was a motion that the Redistricting Committee reconvene for the purpose of studying the county school board zones and road board zones, among other things, and then making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners no later than the regular December 2011 meeting on whether to keep the current zones or to modify the zones, provided that the committee recommends a modification. The committee shall also submit at least one proposed map to the Board of Commissioners for consideration. That is the motion, and that is what passed, and that's what we're here about. So in that, I would like to jump right into some of the questions that you had last week. Was the redistricting persona of the related to the school board and to the road board districts. And you had some questions for Commissioner or Jim Cope, our county attorney. I called him commissioner plenty of times. He's been like our 22nd commissioner up there. And some other things there on the private act as well. So Jim, if you'd like to come on up, we'll just move right into that first, and then get with those things, because I know you've got probably things to do.
No, I'm happy to assist in
any
way I can.
All right.
As long as you all need me, I'm happy to do what I can to help. I think probably the best way that I noticed from looking at the tape and the minutes that there were a lot of give and take with questions back and forth, and I'm not sure, rather than me just getting up and starting to expound on things, that maybe it would be better just to open it up to the committee and let you address whatever questions you may have. I did try to look at all the issues, so in any particular order, if you want to do that, that's maybe the best way for me to go about responding.
Mr. Chairman, I think the biggest point of discussion last week, as I recall it, was how anything we do with maps relates to the private acts, and specifically the timelines involved and the impact that that's going to have on having our redistricting plan filed on time with the state, and just that whole trickle-down effect of what does this mean.
Right.
And we were getting lots of information, and I wanted information from you.
Sure. I'm glad to do that, Commissioner. You do have a January 1 deadline for the county commission to send in their report on the reapportionment. That applies specifically to the county commission districts. As I think you've been told before, you can reapportion school board or road board districts at any point in time. You're not compelled to meet a January 1 deadline. Having said that, you do want to reapportion school board and road board districts at this 10-year time period likewise. But clearly you've got to have the county commissions in by January 1. And I think certainly, and I can't speak for the election commission because I don't know their timetable, but my understanding is they're being driven by that likewise to have these precincts done in time for the election next year. So January 1, it would be the time if you're going to go ahead and do road board and school board, be the good time to do it and send it all down as a package. You clearly have to do county commission. You cannot afford not to do county commission. Whether you want to do road board and school board now and then revisit it in 6 months or 3 months or 3 years, it's entirely up to you as to when and how you do that.
Isn't there something in private acts though where we have certain numbers tied to certain numbers?
Yes, you've got 2 issues going on in the private acts. One are matching up the districts in terms of what commission districts fit together to form these various zones or districts, we'll call them, for both road board and school board. The other is historically somehow it's gotten off track in terms of office for school board and road board members, not all of them, but some of them. And ideally, you would like, and the election commission has specifically requested, that you get those terms of office for these various zones back in sync. And when the steering committee met on Monday night, I think they addressed specifically 2 districts that you could change to have them, and they were going to do road board, because the school board, the general law says on the school board, they must be 4-year terms. So we cannot do anything in a private act to change the school board terms for anything other than 4 years. But in the road board, there is no state general law that deals with it, so that we do have the ability to modify those terms in order to get them in sync. And I think at the steering committee's recommendation Monday night that the decision was made to recommend to the county commission that 2 of those districts for the road boards be extended to 6-year terms, so that when they come up after that 6-year term, everybody would be in sync with 4-year terms running at the same times, with 4 running one every 2 years and 3 running the next 2 years for those districts. You could have gone to 2-year terms, but the steering committee, I think, said, well, let them run for a 6-year term. That's your 2 road board zones or districts that would have done that. So, and that does require a change in the private act to do that, and we can go ahead and get that pushed through, and so that would take place before the August elections for those particular individuals, so they would know who they are and what their term of office is. So all of that's very doable. And it is likewise doable to reconfigure these commission districts, meaning if you want to patchwork them around again, you can do that by resolution as to both the road board and the school board. You have, of course, what's before you now, but you can move those lines around if you want to move those commission districts around or reconfigure those, as long as you meet the law of the 1 man, 1 vote and these other requirements that are set forth in the cases. So I've rambled a little bit.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussions that you might have at this point? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Say that if we want to change the school board zones, and we're going to keep the people that are still into their term, that it isn't coming up in 2012, that they'll still be there for 2 more years to have their 4 years in. Okay, it's again a private act, but we can go ahead and do that right now if we so desire, and then the commission can approve that, and we can go in for the change of the private act.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, yes, as long as you don't interrupt an incumbency. If everyone who holds an office either in the school board or the road board presently, if all of those individuals are permitted to serve out their term representing whatever districts they're in.
Okay.
You have not interrupted their incumbency, so you could make those changes, and then going forward, have those new zones.
That's even if, say, if their zone changes somewhat, which it does anyhow because this is reapportionment time.
Correct. As you say, that goes without saying that's the essence of rezoning or reapportionment is you're going to have changes in lines potentially because of moves in population, but as long as you don't interrupt an incumbency, you can certainly do that. So a commissioner for a particular, a school board member or a road commissioner could represent a different configuration of territory geographically as long as they still continued in office for the balance of this term. And let me make just a couple of comments along those lines and looking back, and this is not anything that's new with me, but comes out of your state manual that you had. County school boards and highway commissions are subject, of course, to the same federal requirement of one man, one vote. Historically, these districts coincide or share the same boundaries as commission districts. Now, there's not anything that I could find in the state law that mandates that those districts have to be identical. You could have different school board districts, but if you start doing that, it really gets problematic on where people vote. You know, I mean, you people might say, well, I vote in this commission district. So ideally and historically, as I say, you would still use commission districts as the means by which you configure whatever road board or zone board you use. And of course, you have to maintain the same one man, one vote requirement. I guess that's all I need to add at this point, unless there are further questions.
I just have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
We've been batting around the phrase a lot, communities of interest, and I know in the, I think it's the Shaw case, it related specifically to racial gerrymandering, which is not at all what really applies to this conversation. However, if you look at the demographics of Laverne versus Eagleville, I imagine they're vastly different. So just given that as a reality, do you think we should be giving weight to the idea of communities of interest in this scenario, in the undertaking that we're faced with? Or do you feel like it doesn't really relate because we're not dealing with the gerrymandering issue?
Yeah. I think strictly from a legal standpoint, it doesn't technically relate because that was a racial gerrymandering case. Having said that, I think even though that was a racial gerrymandering case, the Shaw case does speak to what the courts generally like to see in terms of saying, are these plans appropriate? And since you raised the Shaw-Reno case, those criteria the Supreme Court listed were compactness, contiguity, respect of political subdivisions, respect for communities of interest, and protection of incumbents. And there may be others. All those are ideals that you search for and that you want to have come into play. If you were dealing in a racial gerrymandering case, you would say these are mandated requirements. Absent that, you would want to say these are things that you strive for. How much weight you give to each one, as you all know, when you went through your county commission things, you're doing a balancing, you know, how much weight do you give to this one versus that one. This gets very much into your policy and, in effect, what I'll call the politics of it. It gets to be a political decision of what works best for the majority working together to try to come up with a plan. So, long story short, I think you have a good deal of discretion in here to go whichever direction you want to, as long as you maintain that one person, one vote. And if you decide to give more weight to a community of interest versus incumbency, you could do that. Now, having said that, I did see that Ms. Lester had written a letter late this afternoon that I just got a copy of that suggested that she had gotten information that since the county commission's plan on commission districts had gone to considerable lengths to maintain incumbency, that each incumbent commissioner is still able to continue in an incumbency in a future election without any one of them being thrown into another district, that the state, some agency apparently suggested that would be an appropriate criteria to also maintain that incumbency for road board and school board members. But Other than that, again, you have got to decide as a redistricting committee and ultimately the county commission what works best. That's your decision that you have to make, given all these factors and what weight you give to them, how you balance those, how you decide. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's why it's not an easy job. It's a hard job to do, but you know, you are called upon to make that recommendation to the commission.
Jim, I just want to ask one more thing. I read this paragraph here from the Cole. The office reiterated that if incumbency was achieved in all 21 county commission districts, then the achievement should also be reflected in the school and road board zone lines. Now, some of the maps that were presented had a couple of road board people, or I don't remember, school board people ending up in the same zone. Some of the alternatives, would that eliminate any possibility of doing that based on this discovery, or is that still a possibility?
I have to say to you, as I say, I got this letter about mid-afternoon this afternoon. Apparently, the election administrator, Ms. Lester, has spoken with the State of Tennessee Office of Local Government, talking about this incumbency issue. I have not spoken with them, so I don't know to what degree they have said, since you're doing incumbencies in county commission districts, you've got to do it. Her letter speaks for itself. It says it reiterated that the achievement should also be reflected in school and road board zones. I don't know whether that's an ideal. I don't know whether that is a legal mandate. My guess is it's an ideal, not a legal mandate.
Okay, that's what.
So I don't think it removes the discretion of you all to do that. But I think it's saying since you've done it with the commission districts, then it would be appropriate. It should be achievable again with school and road board.
Okay.
But to say that if you did something different, that your reconfiguration of those would be thrown out in court, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we just wouldn't know at this point in time.
Since you've mentioned these letters, we just got them too, or I just got them. Becky, if you'll read this one, and we'll put this one in the minutes from Ms. Lester, and we also have another one why she's not going to be here. Kind of mentioned that already, but it does mention some other stuff. So if we can read those, and we'll put both of them in the minutes as well.
You want to read the entire letter?
Yes.
I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend the meeting this evening due to a prior commitment. However, I wanted to inform you that had I been able to attend the meeting, I would have abstained from voting on any issue that pertains to assigning a new combination of 3 county commission districts to the various school and road board zones. The reason for this is because rearranging the districts in any manner likely will directly affect some or potentially all of the school or road board zone members' election cycles. Some of the school and road board members are elected to 4-year terms in 2012, while others are elected to a 4-year term in 2014. I believe that any vote for or against any of these types of changes could be perceived as me voting for or against a school or road board member. 1, consequently affecting his or her election term or election cycle, or 2, possibly pitting 2 members of the same board against each other in the event that the zone lines are changed. To make certain that there is no appearance of partiality toward or against any school or road board member, I have personally chosen to abstain from such a vote. If you have any questions about this process, I will be happy to provide you with the necessary information to make an informed decision. You will just need to be specific about the information you need for me to provide. However, I would like to state the following. I have again spoken with the State of Tennessee Office of Local Government since the previous Redistricting Committee meeting on November 30. That office reiterated that if incumbency was achieved in all 21 county commission districts, then that achievement should also be reflected in the school and road board zone lines. 2. If this committee decides to reorganize the 21 county commission districts into new groupings of 3 for the 7 school and road board zones, then the election commission would ask that you follow these guidelines to further streamline the election process for the voters, the candidates, and the election commission. A, the zone numbers be the same between the school and road board zone groups. B, zones 1, 3, 5, and 7, odd-numbered zones, appear on the ballot in one election year, while zones 2, 4, and 6, even-numbered zones, appear on the ballot in the next election year. Additionally, I wanted to mention that Tennessee does not have an official definition of communities of interest. I have extensively researched this issue from Tennessee Code Annotated to Attorney General opinions. The Tennessee Guide to Redistricting shows that this phrase was used by the U.S. Supreme Court in Shaw v. Reno, 1992, wherein the government was being forced to defend lines drawn as the complainant claimed that racial gerrymandering was involved. If you draw lines in part based on communities of interest, then that could be a defense to a claim of racial gerrymandering. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and good luck. This one paragraph?
Yes.
I'm not sure who first mentioned communities of interest, but I quickly flipped through the Tennessee Guide to Redistricting and did not see that terminology. Okay, yes, it's there, pages 10 and 11, but it's mentioned in reference to the Shaw versus Reno case, 1992, which was about racial gerrymandering. The Guide to Redistricting in Tennessee explains when applying and documenting the use of traditional districting principles throughout the redistricting process, a state or local government is more likely to defeat a claim of racial gerrymandering. These principles vary among jurisdictions, but in the Shaw case, the Supreme Court listed these principles as compactness, contiguity, respect for political subdivisions, respect for communities of interest, and protection of incumbents. We do not have any districts or zones where any claim for racial gerrymandering could be made. Therefore, there is really no need to justify any of our districts by claiming that they are the way we made them due to our consideration of a community of interest. This is a defense, not a requirement.
Well, we have Mr. Cope here. Do we have any other questions or comments according to Ms. Lester's letters or anything else that we need to ask Mr. Cope? Yes, sir.
Comment, Mr. Chairman, is maybe Mr. Cope can reflect on or respond to it, I guess that's a better word. I have to look, I know that there's roughly 110,000 pieces of land in this county. I know that 2,945 are on listed as agriculture on Greenbelt. That means they're 15 or more acres. They get, they have some forestry program, or they harvest or cattle or something like this, and they're getting at least $1,500 a year off that property. There's also 1,400 and some odd pieces of land that are listed as farms, which are over 15 acres is what they can. And they could, some of them could be producing a lot of crops or forestry products or something like that, but they choose not to go on the green belt because of rollback things that come later. So what I'm mentioning that's roughly 4,500 large tracts of land that are listed basically as an agriculture type, as opposed. So my question is when we talk rural, somebody, you know, as opposed to city dwellers, there's some difference, but does that come in as changing the people's interest when that's roughly the percentage of true farmers, so to speak, in this county?
I don't know that I have an opinion one way or another. When you start talking about communities of interest, I think you can aggregate those on a lot of different levels. I mean, you can look at it on the basis of race. You can look at it on the basis of, you know, what percentage of females versus males in a given area, what percentage are agricultural versus commercial. I mean, communities of interest mean just that. You might have areas that are highly commercial. That's a community of interest as opposed to a residential or agricultural. Then again, there can be other communities of interest, as I've just mentioned. It could be age-based. You could have segments of a community that could have a lot of seniors living in it. You could have a segment of a community that could have a more youthful vote. So how you aggregate these can vary depending on what type of criteria you're wanting to look at.
The college, homeowners associations, different cities within the county. It goes on and goes on. Our direct community of interest, I guess, would be Rutherford County as a whole, and then it breaks down from there to how far you want to go.
So if I decided I wanted to make a motion to move the school board and road board zones around to make them, well, align with each other more, the same numbers, or et cetera, and maybe some, you know, one of them swap a commission district with one or the other or something like that. As long as we kept basically the school board members that are in now, as long as we kept them to 4-year terms, from what I hear tonight, what I'm getting at is we'd be basically okay. That we're not breaking any laws. We might do what somebody says is not the greatest thing in the world, but if we come out with more compactness, which is one of the big things we looked at before too, and one of the things that I've heard numerous times here, that would be accomplishing something. Because right now, with the changes that have been made in the last couple censuses, that some of these districts have gotten a little out of whack, and some people have a lot of road to cover if they got a school board district. Is what I'm saying, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you have plenty of discretion in that area. The linchpin you've got to do is one person, one vote.
Okay.
So that those 7 districts, however you end up, ultimately have to have one person, one vote. You got it sort of nice in the sense that by having your 21 commission districts already in parity with that, and you can have, as you recall, a 5% swing high or low. If you're within that tolerance, you're generally thought to be in good shape. So you do have the luxury of, you could reconfigure which of these fit together as you so chose, as long as you maintain that one person, one vote. Now, when you do that, you have to be aware of these other factors and be keeping them in mind as to what are we doing to incumbency or compactness, or are they contiguous? Do they share common interest, that sort of thing. But the key is the one person, one vote, and you hopefully would stay within that tolerance back any way you lined up the 3 to form any one district.
Well, I think that's where we get into a community of interest type situation of where is that going to take us? Because if we decide to do whatever map or whatever plan, we're going to not intentionally probably leave somebody out of a community of interest. So would that be an Amival or a Walter Hill, or would it be a real big district, I say a real big subdivision that has maybe a homeowners association that wants their representation? You know what I'm saying? How far can we go with that? If we pull something out, then we're, where is that going to go? Yes, sir.
I don't understand. I've tried to define in my mind what a community of interest is, and I can't. And the reason being, let's say that I live in the 8th district in the middle of a farm, rural area, and Jeff lives here in Murfreesboro in a subdivision. Do we not both want the same good education for our children? Do we not both want good roads? Are you saying one community of interest wants a better school than this community? We all want the same things. I think the community would be the community of Rutherford County and all the citizens in it all wanting the same thing, wanting good roads, all wanting a good education for our children, regardless of whether you live in a rural area or an urban area. And if that's not right, I'd like somebody to explain that to me.
I agree. I mean, I was at church Sunday and had, a couple ladies to ask me, Steve, I know you weren't at the meeting, but what are there people not being represented in Rutherford County in any way, form, or fashion? And I said, no. Everyone's being represented, whether you live in the city or the county or rural or what, from school board, road board, to full commission, to fire, police, you name it. You're represented, and I think represented well. But I don't think you have that as a consensus. I mean, there's one area here tonight that's voiced their opinion about Laverne maybe is wanting something different. Yes, sir.
Everything has been said here, and what the legal has said. The way I'm looking at it from sitting on this committee, we come up here. Really, there wasn't one problem raised, and that was the Laverne, where they had raised a question their area being split up to 3 school board members. And we got down to it towards the end there the other night, looking at a map, and I don't know whether they got a map over there, but if you have, I wish we'd put up that map where we was talking about, it got down to a point there the other night, if we move one section there, that may solve the whole problem.
Well, I
Being
think
as we've heard all the legal and everything else.
You mean making the contiguous, making this part contiguous? If you want to, let's go ahead and pull that up right now.
Can I just add one thing
yes,
before we do
yes.
that? I don't disagree with thinking that, you know, everybody in Rutherford County wants a good education for their children. You know, I think the challenge that we're faced with is we don't have 7 at-large members who run. You know, we don't have 7 people who are generally voted for by the entire population of Rutherford County. And so because we've been, you know, because there's a certain segment of population that has to vote for one person in, that's our challenge, is to create those segments in as fair and reasonable and logical a way and legal a way as we possibly can. So by virtue of the fact that that's our challenge, is to create the delineation, doesn't mean we don't still all want the same thing. It just means we have to create zones, we have to create districts. That's what we're here to do. So let's just have them make as much sense as they possibly can for everybody. But I don't disagree with your statement that we all do want the same thing. You know, it is, you know, we are also Rutherford County at large, but the reality is, unless we want to go to an at-large system where there are no districts, we have to create districts.
But those people, once they get elected, they don't just represent that district, they represent all the children in Rutherford County, or all the roads in Rutherford
They
County.
should.
Yeah.
That's my thinking.
Yeah. Here's the map that you were talking about, Commissioner. This is District 20, which actually where the 20 is down there, put your crosshairs in that, where the gray, turn back to gray. 8, part of that's going in 8, that's 840 that cuts through there. Part of it's going back into 9, that's District 9 right there that's coming into there. And the only problem I have with that, I mean, if this would solve the problem, I think we need to do it. But I'm afraid it's splitting up a community of interest right there, Amable. You know, that's Amable right there, where that all comes together. You've got 3 districts coming together right there, 20, 8, and 9, coming together in that little community of Amable.
Where is it coming to, the line at right yonder, when you say it coming together?
This is Amberville Road.
I know it's Allenville Road, but how far down, where's that line right there?
This is Spantown Road.
Spantown Road, as soon as you get to that first left is Spantown Road right there in downtown Amable, I'd say. You know, you turn left right there. So.
You know where it's at, Joe.
No, I know, I just wanted to point it out, but when you get past Spantown, you aim a little piece right up there at the interstate, so most of
840.
Allenville was all the other way.
What little it is up?
I mean,
Well, the Amable store's right there, Amable Community Center's right there, and the convenience center, Amable Convenience Center, all that is right there at the 3-point juncture.
but now, on this, let me make sure I get in my mind right, is this, if we move that spot, which district we're moving it out into? And who-
20, that right there, that whole little area right there, it's 20 went all the way to the county line, so
Let me turn on the commission districts. Hold on just a second. You see
so the brown part right there where the yellow, that would go back to 9. The blue part right there around the yellow would go back to 8. And that's
What-
Tiffany Phillips is 8 and I'm in 9. Joyce Ely would be 20.
Trey.
I mean, Trey Gooch, I'm sorry. I don't know why I
Now,
said
if
Joyce.
If that goes back like that, what does that do on the school board then?
Well, if we If
Makes
we
it
make that
contiguous.
change tonight, we would still have to get it approved through the county commission.
I know that.
And then it would have to go also to the election commission too for their change.
But on the number wise,
Oh, as far as number of, I think you've
What
got
does that
those
do?
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're within your 5%. I forget what it's
Last
called.
week they were
Yeah.
both in 5%.
The puts number, District 8 at 4.06, District 9 at 4.5, and District 20 at 0.87.
if you move that, what does, on the blue, what school board district would that be?
It's not changing.
It doesn't change it.
It's
It
not-
Change them physically.
It just makes
makes
it
it
contiguous.
contiguous.
It doesn't change. Wayne Blair is still the representative from here to Laverne.
But that does make it all contiguous.
What about, who else would be representing Laverne?
Grant Kelly, if you can roll the map down. See, you've got two more school board members representing Laverne, and you have 3 total. This is Grant Kelly's. Well, she can pull it up and show you.
Let me go to just the school board.
Yeah, just go to the school board, yeah.
Right now
Wash.
you have, I'll zoom into the Laverne area. Right now you have Wayne Blair, which is connected from Eagleville.
Aaron Holiday's in 5, 11, and 12.
Aaron Holiday,
And Grant Kelly's in 1 and 3.
Grant Kelly's in 1 and 3.
So even if we make that change, they still got 3
Yeah.
school boards.
Yes.
Huh?
It doesn't do anything with the school board.
Right.
Yeah, but we received on the internet an email that showed a couple that I guess y'all came up with. We challenged y'all to come up with different ideas for the school board from last week, because I've got one here that says road/school board zone change scenario 2, and I've got a scenario 3, and then I have this one that was, I think, was doing what you just did.
Well, we didn't come up with those. Those were the scenarios from last week that were shown.
Presented by
1, 2,
Steve
and
Woods.
3
Yeah.
that were shown last week at
Oh.
the committee meeting that we just posted and emailed out to make sure everyone had a copy of those before this meeting.
Okay. Well, could you show, did we look at all 3 of them last week?
I
Yep.
believe so, sir.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
There was, there were 4.
And if you want to pull up either one of those, just
Yeah, I'd like to see the one that said scenario 2 on it.
scenario 2.
I'd like to see it with her color, because it's a lot
Okay.
easier than
Okay.
shades of black and
Okay.
white.
I'm turning the labels off.
Mr. Cope, we don't mind you hanging out neither. So if y'all think of another question or something you want for Mr. Cope, please let him know.
Did you look at the legalities of this?
I did not go in to say, like on incumbency and that sort of thing. I thought when you get down to one that you say, hey, this is what we want to do, then we'll put it under the microscope and look at it from that.
Okay.
But my main concern is a one person, one vote. And as
We've
long as
done
that works, then, you know, if you're gonna throw incumbents in, that's your call. I mean, again.
And really, in theory, we could, as a commission, say that this doesn't go into effect until 2014, or, and that might help with the,
Transition.
yeah, and
Sure.
Well, you've
the
got to,
new
You gotta have
term
come up with
limits and
something now.
stuff.
no, yeah.
You
We
need to.
could use the map that we've already passed for the next 2 years.
That's right, and then you could come back and revisit it, or you could say, hey, in 2 years, it's going to change to this one you've got, or whatever one you want. You could do that. Now, you run the risk, of course, I say a risk, you run the possibility that even if you go with the one you've got now, so to speak, and you say, but we're going to go to this other one in 2 years, you could change again between now and that 2 years. And say, okay, in a year you could say, well, we've decided we don't like that one in 2 years, we're going to keep it the way we had it. But, I mean, so you can do it any way you want to. But
Well, and this commission too was faced with, a previous commission had made some decisions and kind of handed them down to us, and it was totally different matter. But it was one of those things where kind of as a group we decided, hey, we don't like that. We're not going to pass the buck on to the next guy. We're going to take care of business while we're here, right? So that'd be the only downside to the transition.
One problem that we have with this one, and there was a number of favorable things said last week about this number 2. Right in the center of the map, you see the blue school board district, and then almost due north of that, in the same district, you have another school board. The only difference is the years that they run. One of them runs next year, one of them runs in 2 years. And I have no idea how to attack that. They've got to be 4 years. And what does the one that doesn't run until 2014, who is that person going to represent if the other one has been reelected or there's been anybody elected? And I think that was addressed in the letter.
Yeah, and it was in the minutes too that was an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid because of all of the term limits, not term limits, the terms, the current terms, and changing this, that we might have to say this will go into effect in 2 years or in 4 years, because we can't actually change it for next year because of, like you just said.
Yeah. That's a good point. I don't believe we could. I guess I'm asking
This
you.
isn't in the map too. What we was looking
We can't
at.
tell a person they can't run.
Is this map too?
Any citizen that's qualified can run, and we certainly can't tell somebody that's already won and is in office that I'm sorry, you can't run next time. You'll have to wait 2 years. Well, I don't believe we can do that.
No.
Why
Is this
can't
school
you?
board map too?
I don't believe we can tell any citizen they can't run for office. Commissioner Schaefer, if they want to run, I'm sorry, you'll have to wait 2 years. How
Well,
you
there
gonna do
isn't an
that legally?
opening in that district, though, in that zone.
Do what now?
There
He's
wouldn't
already
be an
representing the zone.
There wouldn't be an opening in that zone if it was changed to like that. If you got 2 in there, one of them's term is up, right? At the 2012 elections.
Wouldn't be an opening because we made sure there wasn't one.
No, there wouldn't, because that's a case where you have 2 of them coming together. You try to avoid it.
You don't see any lawsuit potential here. If that were me and I wanted to run again, and the county commission told me I couldn't run, and I'm already in office, you think I'm not going to head for Mr. Cope's office right away?
That's the same thing we just got through with the county commission districts. If we'd have reduced them to 14,
Why would we
what
tell
would
you
have
you
happened
couldn't
then?
run? I don't understand the telling you can't run. Why would we tell you you couldn't
Well,
run?
you're
Nothing to
ensuring
run for.
that another election is going to come up, and that area will already be represented. We'll already have a school board.
Right, but you could still run if you wanted that term. You just have to resign your other 2 years you had left on your other one, right?
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We're going to play through all the scenarios. I'm just.
yeah, that's correct. I guess I could do that.
I'm not saying it's not ideal. I'm
Yeah,
not pretending it's ideal. I'm just saying
Is
we're
this
not
the
telling you you
joint
can't run.
road and school?
This is
Two.
scenario 2, and these would be joint road and school. We assume that all the scenarios 1, 2, and 3 were joint road and school. You would put the labels back on?
Yeah.
So you
That's
can
where
see
they
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Okay. Okay.
Let me zoom into the city
All
a
right.
little bit.
No,
so
that's
you
fine.
can-
That's fine. That's fine. You can zoom back out just a little bit. Yeah.
There are 6 incumbency issues in this particular plan. Just
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. Can we-
Zone 1 had a road board member and a school board member. Zone 2 had no road board member and had 1 school board member. 3 had 1 road board member and 2 school board members. And we had a 12 and a 14, so there's the major problem there. And then 4 had 1 road board member and no school board member. 5 had 2 road board members, and that's 12 and 14, or would be up in 12 and 14. So 1, that's the problem. And then 5, see, that was also 1 school board. So then 6 had 1 road board member and no school board member. And 7 had 1 road board member and 2 school board members. Yes. 12 and 12. So see, that one would work out because whoever wanted it could, I mean, they could both run in 12. They're both up at that time. So really, your 2 issues there is Zone 5 and Zone 3. Zone 5 and Zone 3.
What's the issue?
With the issues of incumbency and
Not being protected.
not being protected. Yeah.
Not what?
Not protecting incumbency, you know,
Oh,
so we can
yeah.
have respect for
But
incumbency.
if you look at that one, if you get that picture in your mind, then we can ask her to put up the way it is right now with the new districts.
Mhm.
You've got that. And look at compactness. And let her put up the other one. Okay, that's good. And so you see that one, it's covering Davidson, Wilson, getting down to Cannon at the other end. And I don't think DeKalb quite comes in up there, does it, in the northeast? I'm talking about the lavender color. See, that's not compact at all. And I know that's something that we looked at when we put up the commission district. I'm just throwing it out. You know, what's most important? Huh?
Which one you talking about?
Well, I had the same thought.
This one. This is this is the way we're going to be set up for school boards
This is
in
now.
2012 as things stand now.
And it's pretty clear to look,
And
you
that-
basically have quadrants.
It's a long hike.
And so everything's compact and it's contiguous. We're here, there's really no rhyme or reason. You've got,
You got so much road across through there.
you've got a long strip, you've got a couple of semi-quadrants. and
Well,
quadrants
and
broken
I'm
up.
asking the question too, as far as the election process. You know, the way it sits, you're saying Laverne right there. They could truly have, with 3 representatives now, they could truly have 3 school board members that live inside Laverne, because you've got it broken up 3 ways right now, in 3 different school board
Yeah,
members.
but what you got is you got 2 districts that.
So you're going to be
is
reducing
one,
3.
And then you get 2 Smyrna districts and 1 Laverne.
You're going to be reducing 3 representatives to 1.
2, really? It'll be 2.
I thought it was just 1.
Because some part of Laverne's going to be over in this lower blue district. You know, I agree with Doug's point. He's just basically saying, you know, we talked about the traditional districting principles, and Jim read them off to us earlier, were compactness, contiguity, respect for political subdivisions, which is basically the municipalities, you know, their city limits, respect for communities of interest, and protection of incumbents. And so in one of these scenarios, somebody falls by the wayside. You're either dropping incumbency, you're dropping community of interest, you're dropping compactness, you're dropping something with one of these. Each one of these has some flaw. So we just have to figure out which flaw is the least problematic to us as a group.
Well, moving right along, what's your suggestion? What do you want to do?
I was just throwing around. We could say anything we do, we can have something negative and positive to say about it, is what it is. So
Well,
what's most important is what I'm saying.
I can understand that. The plan is ready to present to the state of Tennessee as far as election commission. Y'all may have some, you said final.
No, it's ready to present.
It's ready.
We
It's
finalized
ready.
the precinct lines last night,
Okay.
but the
Just the
only thing
precincts
we lack
themselves.
is we haven't finalized the precincts themselves.
Okay.
But we don't have to finalize
Right.
that to the state.
Okay. So if we, all I can tell you is if you want to get in contiguous district and we do that change in the Amoville area, we need to do that before or through the full commission, which our last full commission would be next Thursday night. So we need to send that to full commission either tonight, or if we can't hammer it out tonight, we'll have to hammer it out next Wednesday. I prefer we try to hammer it out tonight and send it to them. If you don't, then it's going to be sent that way, done. And if we still want to work on school and road board, we can do that. But
You know, the motion said we needed to send at least one map. I mean, I'm personally not opposed to sending both maps, and just, you know, let us figure it out on the commission floor, because I think, you know, I think if you took a poll in this room right now, every one of us could argue both sides. I think every one of us each one of us sees the benefit and the flaw to each one, and so.
If you don't recommend a modification, we don't have to send any map.
Well, I think it's got to be modified one way or the other, and I think I personally embrace the scenario 2 over just making the correction at the animal connection.
I don't like changing the commission district.
It feels like patchwork a little bit to me.
What would happen if we did vote for number 2 for terms?
Well, I think if you did vote for number 2, my thought would be that you send that to the election commission and let Ms. Lester, if you want to do that, let her look at the terms and these cycles she's talking about and see what she can come up with, and maybe report that to either this committee again, if you want to go at it one more time, or report it to the full commission. So
I think we've got that.
And maybe it is implemented in.
Wasn't that one of the things we asked them to do last week? I thought we asked the election commission to.
But through what we did at steering,
Uh-huh.
it shows each zone and what their.
Yeah, but that's based on the county commission plan.
That's true, but that's still staying the same. We're just incorporating, if we incorporate map 2, it's still those representatives in those type election schedules right now that's up there.
Okay,
And
that's what
12.
I cannot speak to, because I don't know. You're
Okay.
saying that's happened, and
That's
I'm
where-
not disputing,
yeah.
I just don't know whether it's happened or not. I don't know whether it's.
There it is right there. It's in front of you. Zone 1, which is district. Let me get y'all's attention. Zone 1 is District 5, 11, and 12. There's the school board and the road board. The school board's coming up in 2014. The road board's coming up in 2014.
Right.
So, I know what you're talking about. I mean, you're incorporating the 2. Well, that's what I just went over right there from what she is already broke down into those zones. So on a one-on-one through zone 1, which is 5, 11, and 12, under scenario 2, there should be 1 road board and 1 school board member.
Well, what we've already said, when we're not protecting incumbency, I mean, there may not be right now. They'll have to serve out the term and represent the district they were voted from, and it would have to be go into effect in advance of that next election cycle.
Yeah, unless you tweak it. That's what I'm saying. That would be what I was just telling you what the layout was.
Yeah.
So basic 2 problems would be zone 3 and zone 7. No, zone 3 and zone 5. Zone 7 would have both of those folks running against each other, and the school board zone to win out whoever. So that's what I was trying to shed some light up on that. But if y'all want to send that back to her, that's fine.
Well, I thought that was
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the reasons we had OIT email out the maps so everybody had them, and I thought that was one of the things that they were going to do for us in advance of tonight's meeting, was to help us fully understand the implications.
I didn't get that
of,
through the minutes, did y'all? I mean,
Nope.
I didn't understand
but
it.
you had the same expectations. Yeah.
You got a man
I just want to make sure we're clear. The scenario 2 that we're looking at here
Uh-huh.
is as it stands with the existing commission districts. And that incumbency is as it stands with the existing commission districts, not with the changes for the steering has made. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Right, that's true, that's true. Nothing's in stone yet, right.
That's not
What we did
proposed.
in Monday night at steering still got to be approved at full commission, so I'm just saying,
But
what's headed there, that's
but
not a done
I do
deal
have
yet.
those proposed, I can show you on the map those proposed changes if you would like to see those proposed
Would you
changes.
show those?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so by looking at this proposed map 2, to correct the conflict in Laverne, you're going to throw the conflict on me in Zone 5. That's what you're doing.
I'm not doing anything.
That's what the map is doing.
I'm reporting, yes.
That's what the map is doing. To
Yes.
correct the conflict in Laverne, you're going to throw it to me in Zone 5.
I would vote to.
And
That's the way
zone,
they elected.
and
That's
zone
the way
3.
it's- yeah,
Zone 3 and zone 5.
Zone 5.
That'd be
That's right.
6 districts.
That's right.
6 districts would kind of be out of,
So we got to go and change it and make it correct for Laverne area, but we're gonna disturb 6 more districts to correct that,
unless something else is done.
unless something else.
Unless
is-
we just don't do anything.
I know it. We can elect them at large.
Is it corrected when you're disturbing 6 districts?
No, it's not.
Okay.
You know that's not. That's why next month we'll have Zone 5.
Yeah,
up
they
here.
corrected, okay. So it's not broke to begin with, it's just wanting, okay.
Right.
All right, I just want to make sure that we hadn't done anything wrong.
I'm looking for direction on the committee. Hmm. Oh, Commissioner, you want to speak?
If you don't mind, if the committee would be okay with that, sure.
Well, come on up here a little bit so we can get you closer. I know you're on the back row there.
I think there's a misunderstanding again about the incumbency issue can you pull that map 2 back up there? In the one that's labeled Zone 3, you have the dark blue dot is Mr. Tackett, who was elected in 2010, and he has to be placed in a district where he cannot be forced into election until 2014. He has District 3. The light blue circle is Mr. Kelly. He will be in a school board zone, but unfortunately, that school board zone would not be up for election until 2014. So he's up for election in 2012, based on the current map. And if something like this is approved, he would just not be able to run in 2012 for re-election. But if he wanted to run again in 2014 for election to a new district, he'd be free to do that. And so we're not telling anybody that they can't run. State legislatures and Congress does this all the time when they draw lines around. Sometimes you just have a situation where 2 people that live close together are placed in the same district.
But then he would have to move over into Zone 3 after the election.
He
Because
lives
otherwise,
in Zone 3.
no, he lives in Zone 4, right?
No, he lives in Zone 3.
Under
Or
this
is he
scenario,
li-
he's in 3. He's in 3.
Okay, he's in 3.
He
So
would continue to represent the
Okay.
term he has, or the district he has right now.
through August of next year.
Until the election of next year, and those new members take office on September 1st, and this would be the districts that those people represent.
Mhm.
So Mr. Kelly would not be able to run for re-election in 2012 under this scenario.
Mhm.
And then in the 2 other districts that are affected, then you're going to have people that are up for election at the same time. You have the 2 school board members in the pink colored district right in the middle, and then you have the 2 road board members in the orange colored district. And both of those were up for election in 2012. So nobody's being told that they can't run again.
That's in Zone 7?
That's in, 7 is the one with the 2 school boards members that are together, and then Zone 5 is the 2 road board members who are up for election next year also. But again,
Well, I've got one that's in Zone 5 up for 12, and the other one's 14.
They look to me like they're both up in 2012 on the map. Mr. Anderson and Mr. Jones.
It says expires 8/1/12.
So again, that would just be 2 that run at the same time. So the only district where you're going to have someone that would not be able to run at all would be the one with Mr. Kelly.
Oh, that's the road board 12 and 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Mr. Attorney, can we do that?
Yeah, you know, as long as nobody is thrown out of office, if they have the right to serve the balance of their term, you could have two folks that serve in the balance of their terms that all of a sudden are thrown into the same district with that when they run, if both of them want to run, they're only competing for one spot. They're not competing for two separate spots.
You know, if their term runs out in different years.
Well, that's what you have with Mr. Kelly and,
Right.
and him, and that's legal. I mean, Mr. Kelly is given the balance of his incumbency. He serves to 2012. He does not then, he's not able to rerun for that seat because it's been redistricted. But he then would be eligible to run in 2014 when Mr. Tackett's term runs. But he would have to potentially run against Mr. Tackett if he elected to run, or anybody else that's out there.
You understand, I'll be at home while you're arguing this in court. I'll be watching with great interest, though. But I appreciate your advice. Thank
Now,
you.
as long as you don't disturb an incumbency, you don't have to guarantee. Now, I say all that again, just like Ms. Allen said, you're balancing these factors. You are saying now that you are saying for future races that you are going to have people who are incumbents now being thrown in potentially about contested races against each other, either at common time and place or at future time and place. And you balance that with these other factors of compactness, contiguousness, and so it's that's that hard call you have to make about what works best.
This is what Ms. Lester was talking about, that she wouldn't be voting for. Is that correct in her letters?
Right.
That if we did number 2, she felt like she couldn't do that being election representative. Okay.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You know, we sent out that questionnaire that if an elected official was planning on running, would they send it in or whatever? Did we have anybody from the school board and the road board send in anything that they planned to
Everybody was
run?
planning on running.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, since we're going around in a circle, I'll put us at least headed in some direction. It may be backwards, okay? I'm going to make a motion that we alter the school board and the road board zones with this scenario 2 that we see up there now. And I don't know if I ought to say for 2012 or for 12 or 14 and let the election commission decide. Well, I'll just say for 2012. That's my motion. That's the one that I'm seeing up there right now.
You're going to send that to full commission?
That's my motion.
So scenario, map 2.
The one we're seeing right now.
Right here, which is, how are we labeling that? Map 2?
Scenario 2.
Map 2, scenario 2?
Okay.
Okay.
Scenario.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion. I have a
We
question
got a
for
second,
Pam.
and then we want to start discussion with you then.
I thought I heard you say a minute ago that if we were going to go with scenario 2, that we should probably send it to the election commission first
Well,
for feedback before we send it to the full commission.
my only thought would be that if you're going to encounter a problem, you'd rather know about it
Right.
sooner rather than later.
Right.
And I respect Mr. Sandlin's evaluation and Mr. Stevens' evaluation, and I'm not for a moment disputing that they are entirely accurate, but to avoid any question, I think it would be prudent to have the election commission report back that yes, in fact, what you've been told tonight is true, and that these are the issues. These are the incumbency issues, and that way you would know. That's just, I thought. Now I don't know that you have to meet again, but if there is a flaw, and you sent this up there, then you're almost dooming it to failure.
Right.
The director can do that and probably have it for us for next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
would give her time to meet and report back. Yes, here are the
That's what it
3 or
is.
4 incumbency issues. They are what you were told last Wednesday. They are what they are. And
Yeah.
So, Doug, would you
Hold on a
Suspend
second.
the rule and let him.
Yes, sir. Hold on
I
a second.
got to add another part
Okay.
to my, if this affects any road board member that that's in now with this new system, I said they go to the 6-year term like came out in steering. They run for a 6-year term when it's time to run. if it affects any of them in 2012.
You want to add that to your motion?
Yes, just to
You wanna
to
add that
make
to
sure
your
it
second?
balances,
Okay.
is what I'm saying.
Doug, would you?
Wait a minute. Clarification, we got that added onto the motion. You got it?
I do. Did you want a report back from the election commission on the issues?
Yes.
Do you want that to this committee or the commission?
Do we got enough time to get it back here?
If you're willing to meet.
You think?
If
Meet
you want to
Wednesday
meet
before?
next Wednesday, but otherwise we'll be meeting next Thursday on whatever we do here.
I'd rather go back to election than back here. We'll be sure before we get there.
Then
If you
back
don't,
here
you're gonna
next
really have a
Wednesday.
squabble on the floor. But we're gonna tell you they don't know. You're gonna have to find out from election, and that's why here, election
Then I'll
commission
maintain
will
my
get back
second.
to us.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's read that, and then we'll make sure we're okay on the good motions and second, and we'll have more discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
Your motion is alter the school board and road board terms with scenario/map 2 for the 2012 elections with a report back from the election commission on issues to the committee next Wednesday. If there are any if this affects any road board member that is in office now, that they will run for a 6-year term in the next election.
In 2012.
Next election will be 2012. Okay, we got a motion. We got a
Can
second.
we hear from this
And then-
gentleman stand?
Yes, sir. I was wanting to get through the committee process first, and then we'll open it up on the outside the committee. Any other discussion on the committee level? Commissioner Bradshaw.
Sure. I'd just like to address y'all talking about, when y'all showed the map, y'all brought up the school board districts. And I think in this scenario, it was going to possibly affect, I think, 2 road board members later on in an election from 12 and 14. I just wonder if you could pull the same in this scenario that you have here and see how, or if it's going to affect any road board members in the same election years, 12 and 14.
It looks like road board members affected would be just 5, zone 5.
I mean, I didn't know.
Are you in 5?
No.
I mean, what 2?
I'm in zone 2.
You're in zone 2.
I currently, zone 2 represents districts 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, they don't have a road board representative in zone 2. That's what it looks like under the scenario 2. But they do have 1 school board member.
Right. I'm not, I don't run into.
Am I right on that, Commissioner Stevens?
I think he lives in what is designated District 4 on this map.
Right.
And his term would not be affected until 2014.
What does that do to the road board
That's your
down
house.
5?
In 5, somebody comes up in 12, and then 14.
Both of them come up at 12. So they'll be running.
Both of them have been 12.
Well, you got 2 members in the same district.
Yes, sir.
Coming up at the same time.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
That's what Mr. McNamara.
That's what I've been bringing up.
And also in zone 7. Well, that's the school board in 7. And then Kelly would have to drop out, or well, he would finish his term in 12 in zone 3, and then the other term is not up till 14, I think. Okay.
I'm sorry. I
Yes,
also
sir.
have one more question, because I mean, this is a little bit different because I'm of the numbers showing different here. Actually, on this scenario, when I'm used to be in zone 2, but I would be zone 4 here. What commission district is zone 4 now? Because that's changed.
That's
Well,
right.
it's commission districts 2, 4. and-
Zone 4 is 8, 9, and 10 for road and school.
No.
2, 4,
We want to know what commission districts.
We're getting the districts and the zones kind of mixed up.
2,
That's
15, and
Yeah, but what
4.
I'm saying right now, I represent commission districts 1, 2, and 3. With this scenario, which commission districts would I represent?
2,
2,
4, and
4,
15.
2, 4, and 15.
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Back when this committee first met,
Yes, sir.
we adopted the idea that we were going to draw everything based on the criteria, including incumbency. And, you know, if we hadn't worried about county commission incumbency, or any incumbency like we're tossing around road board and school board, remember, and I don't have a dog in the hunt, we would have had a totally different map with a bunch of nice little squares.
That's true. Right.
So my whole issue is that while I can understand Laverne's want and desire to have almost a guaranteed person elected from their city limits with the new district drawn, we didn't take that in our criteria when we started drawing these maps originally. We worried about incumbency. I'm hearing incumbency now tossed around like it's not important at all and like it never was. It was very important. Matter of fact, it was the basis for our map was that we talked about no commissioner, no road board member, no school board member. We tried to achieve those three things. Mm-hmm. And we were able to achieve those, and we tweaked them and squeaked them and massaged it as best we could.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm hearing people now that voted for that later come back and say, well, that's not important anymore. As long as my county commission seat is okay, then I'm not going to worry about the road board and school board member because, you know, I'm trying to make sure that Laverne gets a representative. I mean, I see Laverne's request, but in this situation right here, based on what this committee originally was charged with and the rules we originally adopted, I just see terms being loosely changed, and in my opinion, you know, we're going back on what we originally said. If we'd have just said, okay, all we're going to worry about is county commission seat incumbency, and we started drawing these districts, they'd be totally different, but we said all three. And so I just wanted to make that statement because I see that that's changing, and I wish we would have known that when we originally started drawing these districts and drawing these lines. We might have avoided this whole headache completely if we would have just said the only incumbency that's important is the county commission seat.
I firmly agree.
It would be a lot different, I would say that. On the
It'd be totally different.
I firmly agree with Mr. Evans because we had a discussion up here on these commissioners being in separate districts because we use as an example Jeff, Jordan, and myself. And we want to tweak it where we could get each commissioner in a separate district. So I don't see why we should go and discriminate against the road board and the school board. If we're going to keep this philosophy, we should keep it all the way through. If we're not, we'll just start over with square one and start doing commissioners. And have the nice little squares and let it fall where it may.
I agree. Any questions or discussion on the motion?
I just have one thing I want to add to that. It's more of an editorial. You know, I don't take incumbency lightly, and I don't mean to sound like I'm dismissing it, that it's not an important thing. But when I look at these two maps, and I see on all of our criteria that one of them hits on more of them than not, you know, on our commission districts, we never looked to see how that translated to road and school board. You know, this looks like a patchwork quilt. And I think if we'd set out to draw just this map and we weren't looking at commission districts, I don't think we would have ever designed this map as being the ideal map. This is the map that was the result, the consequence of looking at the commission districts and drawing it first, which was our top priority. I mean, that was what we were supposed to do. That's what we were, you know, charged with. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm tossing incumbency out lightly. It's a very important thing to me, but when I look at this map compared to this map, and I can clearly see quadrants drawn, compact, contiguous areas, I just have to make a personal decision to say, you know what, this has so many more things going for it than just where the incumbents live, that I think it's a good plan for us going forward for the next 10 years. I just think it's a better plan than the other one. So that's my editorial.
Well, I agree with that. My only statement would be that the entire original map would look a whole lot better if we hadn't worried about any incumbency.
That's right.
And we worried about all three. And we could make a map that was the most beautiful map that you had ever seen. There were nice square quadrants, some a little larger than others. But when we were charged with that and we said we took into place all incumbency, I thought that we were concerned with all incumbency when we were drawing our maps and our lines. And that's why we made sure that we didn't put anybody in the same district. So I understand what you're saying, and maybe the term of taking incumbency lightly was incorrect. And if so, I apologize. That may not have been the correct language, but I'm just saying that I am seeing opinions and differ, and a discussion change from where we originally started from as a committee, at least is what we were asked to do by the county commission. And so I just wished we had originally talked about that, because I believe we could make some county commission's district maybe different, maybe still kept everybody from having to run against one another, but at the same time drawing them a little more compact and contiguous with a little more communities of interest.
I think someone forestated earlier that there's no perfect conclusion to this. You know, somebody's going to be left out, but I think us as a group we have to come together and just figure out what's going to be best and move forward. I just really think we need to do that, because we're going around and around and we're not getting anywhere.
Call for question, Mr. Chairman.
Question's been called for. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of calling the question, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All that oppose, question's been called for. All those, let's do roll call vote. Ms. Secretary, please. On the motion, and we reread the motion, please.
Your motion is alter the school board and road board terms with scenario/map 2 for 2012 election, with a report back from the election commission on issues to the committee next Wednesday. And if this affects any road board member that is now in office, that they will run for a 6-year term in the next election in 2012.
All right, call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Pass.
Commissioner Jernigan?
No.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
No.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Commissioner Sandlin?
No.
Uh, 5 yes, 4 no, 1 pass.
It's tied then. Pass goes to on the, doesn't go for a yes and doesn't go for a no. Correct?
It's 5-4.
So it's 5-4, you're gonna have to adjourn while I go get Robert's Rules of Order on that.
I'll amend my vote and go no.
So that defeats.
Now it's tied. So the motion fails with a tie vote.
I tell you, I want to tell you what, it's tough, isn't it? I talked to Mayor Mosley just 2 or 3 times, and she made such a really good talk to me. And I finally decided that it's her representation of Laverne. She knows, I think, better than I do. And I had kind of, I'm pretty sure. And Carol Cook surely does. And I've talked with her as well. And so I kind of decided that if they think this is a good thing for them to do this, I'm not sure that I'm sold on it. But like I say, I think they have more info than I do. And that's why I kind of have come around to a little bit. But I do want to point out, Mr. Evans, that you said last week, maybe your vote just reflects that you were concerned about being in a hurry. Not only the appearance of being in a hurry, but being in a hurry. You made that last week. And Commissioner Schaefer, you pointed out in a very impassioned plea, I just watched it today on TV, of the mistakes that can happen when you're in a rush. And I think we can solve, at least make a good attempt at solving these problems if we wait just a little while. Yeah, just let's get the commission thing done through the state, and then I'd be perfectly willing. I don't want to put anybody off. Say, oh, we'll do it next spring. If we want to set a date to come back and meet, or elect a new committee. I'd be all right with that.
Motion, can I second?
To solve the road board and school board problems, which in effect would hopefully solve Laverne's problems. I'd kind of like to see us do that. I'll just put that out there for discussion.
Is that a motion?
No, just
I
discussion.
can second it.
I'll come back.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman.
Nicole had talked about, when does the cards go out?
We have plenty of time.
So
It's
that
in May.
goes
May, I
out
believe.
May.
May.
And the deadlines for races is, what is that? Is that late March, late March, I think? First of April, so, I mean, there's plenty of time.
Well, I certainly want to hear from the election commission on next Wednesday, which would be, yeah, that'd be right, next
Well, if this
Wednesday.
motion failed, then we don't meet next Wednesday.
Well, that's
Did-
correct.
There's nothing- there's
Commissioner,
nothing back.
hold on one second, we got Joe Frank, Commissioner, you had your hand up.
Well, I was all set vote for the other plan till listening, trying to gather what the county attorney was saying and what come about on road board and school board members too. And one part that stuck out in my mind, and I want to make sure that we don't end up in some kind of suit or something. When you make this change here, what caught me is you got into 3 road board members here, and one of them is African American, and you ain't even got one road board member that is, and he would be plumb out.
It's on fire.
He's all plumb out.
Well,
And it puts 3 of them in one. And I don't think committee ought to give up. What I'm saying, I mean, I still think we need to figure something out here for Laverne. I agree with it 100%. But we ain't rushed at no deadline. If we leave the other like it is and it goes on and you pass in the districts, you still got this committee right here. They can tell them meet as many times we want to till we figure out how to solve this up.
Well, on the same thoughts of Mr. Taylor, we may be pushing and pulling here, and we might even have our dukes up, at one point, but I really think that this community, Rutherford County, we've got a pretty good little issue on our hands where we're trying to make it this much better, So the folks in that area might think it's a lot better, but we're trying to make it better altogether in Rutherford County. So it might be a good opportunity for us to regroup, get through Christmas, get through New Year's, come back in here in January. In the meantime, have OIT working on a couple little tweaks here, and we get our commission district thing done, and the school board and road board deal, it may just take some minor changing from this map 2 to make this whole thing fit into place.
That's what
It may
I'm
float,
getting at.
resolving their issue, and hopefully not causing any other issues.
Yeah.
That's what
And
I'm
I think
saying.
that's what I'm hearing.
And
I'm just-
It's gonna be hard to
Change the
do.
commission.
I just don't see how you can do
Mr.
this.
Chairman,
You
you
got
gotta send that to national, so those district lines will be fixed.
Yeah, okay, for 10 years.
2 questions.
Commissioner?
One's for Mr. Cope. Mr. Cope, after the voting's done, how long does a person have to change their vote?
Well, you mean in terms of timing tonight, how much time you have?
The voting was over. Can you still change your vote?
Oh, you mean in terms of Mr. Evans' vote?
Yes.
Uh,
I'm just asking.
Our
Yeah.
commission rules say you can't change.
No, you really couldn't change your vote. Having said that, if someone on the prevailing side,
Yeah.
Second question. is we have to go to the commission with the way this, we were charged in this motion, is next Thursday, December 15th, whether to keep the current zones or modify the zones. That's our only thing we can do as this committee by next Thursday. So it's got to be, yes, we're modifying with a map, or no, we're not. So, you know, then we can come out on the commission floor if we want, after that recommendation is given, and you can make the motion that we form a committee to start studying this again this next spring or winter, from that standpoint. I mean, but we, as a group here, we've only got two choices.
Well, I'm gonna report what the committee does, but I'm saying that's an option.
Yeah, that's something we can.
To bring it back up in January.
That would be the option of the commission.
Well, that would be the option of this committee going to the commission, and if they want to say yes to that, of course, they could pull up map 2 and approve it too.
Well,
or any other.
But Mr. Cope needs to answer that first
Well, I've got
question.
to go get Robert's Rules of Order. This is an ad hoc committee. You're not governed by the county commission rules.
Okay.
This isn't the county commission committee. This is an ad hoc committee. And I've got to go get Robert's
So
Rules
then
of
the
Order.
chairman can make the ruling, right?
Well,
In
we
that
got to
case?
inform the chairman in terms of that prior vote.
I was under the impression from years ago that a pass doesn't mean a yes or a no, but it doesn't count as a yes.
I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just not going to speculate on
Yes.
it.
I understand. Do note it.
So I'll go get the book and y'all can.
You know, I've heard people change their vote to make something unanimous.
Yeah, I have to.
Oh,
In committee.
Right. Right. Again,
I don't care.
Just to look at it, I mean, I'm just saying, if basically what Commissioner Schaefer's saying is the vote's in, it was 5-4-1, and passed to go to map 2, and he abstained, and he says that's the majority vote rule. I'm gonna look at Robert's rules and see what that
Are
says.
you challenging it? If you are, we'll let him go ahead and get the Robert's
I
rule.
got to challenge it.
Okay. Go ahead and get the Robert's, yeah.
While he's challenging that, I disagree with the commissioner over here saying that we only have two options. We can come out of this committee and say that we couldn't come up with a conclusion and send that back to the floor. It's
Right.
been done. It's been done.
Well, that's
This committee was
not
given
what the
a
motion
job.
says.
Well, if you can't get it out of the committee, what you gonna take back?
Oh, you got a point.
You know, and it's been done. The chairman knows it's been
Sure.
done. Every one of you know it's been done. If we go back to that full commission and say, hey, we couldn't come up with anything, we need to have another direction of a way to go, or we need another committee or so on and so forth. But you can't say that you're going back to the commission and you only have two options, yes or no. Not out of this committee.
Right.
You can't do it.
I always hate it when the government, federal government does it all the time. They say things like, we're looking at that, we're working on it, we're working hard, we've got a committee on that, you know, and they're gonna report back. And then that's the last you ever hear of it.
Yeah.
Now, if we're gonna come back, and if I get a chance, I will make a motion to Evans and
Perfect motion.
attorney gets back, but, and you said January a minute ago, and if that's all right, I'm gonna put that in my motion. We come back and look at school board and road board. Or, of course, commission can always change that. They can always appoint a new committee, you know, whatever they want to do. But, if they don't make any changes, we come back sometime in January, which will be your call on when we do that, I guess, and that's fine. But let's give the folks
It wasn't a typo.
that have a dog in this hunt, to quote somebody I heard just recently, a chance to know that we are going to do it. We're bound to do it. We voted to do it if that's how we vote.
Folks, let's listen. Give the courtesy, you don't listen.
Commissioner Stevens is.
While we're waiting for Jim to come back, I mean, if the committee wants to, before we like take a 10-minute break or something until he comes back, is the adjustment in making them contiguous is really doesn't have to happen if we're going to do map 2.
But if we're
So,
not, we
if we're
may
not,
need to look at that adjustment. That
do
was
you
gonna
want
be
to-
that
that's
was
what I was
gonna be
saying.
something I was gonna bring up when we get all this other settled.
Okay.
If we're not, if map 2 is not gonna be presented, or even if it is, as an option. The second option should be to make District 8 contiguous.
If any other question or comment, if not,
I just had one thing
Yes.
I'd like to say. Instead of taking a 10-minute break, we've got a lot of people who are here who've taken time out of their day, who are not on this committee, to come, observe and see what we're going to do. I'd like for you to possibly even open the floor for comments, for feedback. I'm just interested to know what they're hearing, what they're thinking, and if it'll weigh at all on what we do going forward.
okay, we got a few minutes here.
Well, what was your response to this contiguous of the 8th district?
I'm afraid
is that something we need to look at or not?
Well,
if not, what's the reason not to?
I don't want to throw an area in my district, Amable, under the bus and say, they're a community event. They're not a community of interest, and we're going to do this to you. I would have had to look hard at it, even in redistricting, if we chose to do this, because, and I don't want to say, either all in 8, all in 9, or all in 20. And really, if it doesn't stay in 20 the way it's set up right there, it's still going to be split up.
Didn't Amable used to be in the 8th district?
Used to be in 9. When I was first elected in August of 90, I had Amable. That was before an 840. I went all the way to 96.
Before I was elected, I voted over John Coleman School in Smyrna, and I was in with Smyrna. But we've changed a lot in the last 20 years.
Sure. But what I'm saying is Amable, the community was intact. In what we have here in 20, it's intact. But splitting it up to make it contiguous, it's going to be split up into the people, not the school zones, not the road, the school and road will stay this, well, that's 8, 9, and 10, so 20 is taking it out partially. I have mixed emotions about it, to be honest. I was thinking that, that might be it wasn't my idea, but the idea that came up from somebody last week or something might be a quick fix, for it. But the more you think about it, it's an area that would be split up into 3 different districts then.
It would be like splitting up Rockville, the way that it was.
Yeah.
Or currently is, not the new map.
To me, popularity means a lot.
Another point to make here is that we really owe the folks at Eagleville an opportunity here, because on the map 2 they do not have a school board member, since Mr. Blair represents them now. So I suggest to you that there's probably 20 wonderful citizens out there that would be ready to run for the school board in next year. And I imagine I think we owe it to them, which is another reason, January.
Yeah.
We kind of owe it to them to let them know that there's a new school board zone, and if you want to represent Eagleville and Rockvale, if that's your calling, then get with it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We're going to open it up. Folks that have taken their time to come. Yes, sir.
Alderman Broker, Laverne. Something that's the third time I've spoke to y'all, and I have to clear up a misperception that I keep hearing. This is not a Laverne issue. There's no one can sit in this room that can say scenario 2 does not represent the county, the entire county, better than what we currently are using. I'm talking about giving everyone adequate representation. It is not a Laverne issue. Certainly we filled up the room, we filled up the commission. Certainly it is something that we're very concerned about. But Mr. Jordan, as you said, it also, Eagleville is also hit by this. And what we're asking. Right now you have, again, I'm going to speak for Laverne, you have us in 3 separate districts. Very small parts of districts, okay? Mr. Holliday's here, the first person that has ever lived in Laverne that sat on the school board. And while great as he is, I believe you ran unopposed, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I was opposed.
Oh, you were opposed, okay, but at any rate.
It made it look like it.
That's good, but the point is, you keep hearing that we can have 3, we could be in 3 school districts or school board, 3 members. Yes, we could. But the probability of that is very long, just because of the electric that's in other parts of the, I think it runs from the top all the way down to Eagleville. You got Smyrna in between there, you got Eagleville. I would say probably 20% maybe sitting in Laverne. Certainly somebody could work hard and get in there. Again, that's the one thing that I just keep hearing from you, but the bigger point that I want to say is this. I keep hearing, and certainly you have to take it as a consideration in incumbencies. You certainly can't abridge any terms. But you have 264,000 people that I think should be the main reason why we're sitting in this room. Are every one of those being fairly represented? Certainly we're worried about, we don't want, I think Zone 5 would have 2 road board members coming up at the same time. And that is an issue. We certainly don't want to cause someone, but if it means we make something, 2 gentlemen have to run against each other, if it gives full coverage, if it gives full representation to the entire county, to me that would be better, in my opinion. And that's what I think we should look at. And that should be y'all's #1 priority, not what incumbency. Certainly that should be a consideration, but not at the top. I think representing the county correctly, when this was drawn up, and I've heard everything from 20 years to 40 years, it may have been the way it should be. But right now, with the way things have changed in this county, maybe there's a better map, maybe there's a better zone, but scenario 2 gives best representation. I think that's what you all got to take into consideration. That's my opinion. Certainly you got to look at incumbency, sure. But you have 264,000 people that you have to represent, and the current map does not do that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Tell us what's on your mind.
I would like to just point out one more little thing. If we're going to amend the private acts to make the districts uniform, have the elections up at the same time, the bill filing deadline is the last week in January. So if we would, in fact, recommend a new map, it would have to be approved by the January commission meeting, so that we could also have the private act recommendation sent on to the state so they can meet the bill filing deadline. Otherwise, if we approve a new map, they're still going to have the same problem with the districts not being aligned and up for election at the same time. So there's only going to be a week or two if you meet on Wednesdays in January where you can get this done. And if the first meeting's not till 10, 11, 12, day 10, 11, 12 in there, you're just not going to have enough time to hammer all this out. So I just want to throw that out there for consideration too, that there is kind of a deadline to get this done if we want to meet the bill file at the legislature.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just one thing, I don't know if that's what he alluded to. On Monday at the steering committee, and the steering committee voted on that affected zones, this right here, trying to line those up. Well, like for me, I'm in Zone 2 Road Board, and I currently represent districts 1, 2, and 3, but under the scenario 2 map, I would be representing districts 3
to 15 and 4.
3, 4, and 15. So that's
2, 4, and 15.
2, 4, and 15. Okay. So that's going to change. It's going to change what Ms. Lester said needed to line up, because as far as on the school board and the road board, so I don't know how that's going to affect that. So.
Mr. Bratcher, though, that's true of every single elected official.
Right.
Mr. McAdoo picked up some of my district, right. and so, or I lost some of my district, however you want to look at it. So he's going to have to campaign with people that he has not represented before. That'd be true of a large number of, I'm not sure how many, but a large number of commissioners for sure.
Right. No, I'm not saying I necessarily have a problem with it. I'm just trying to point out, I know you all had already approved this in the steering committee level Monday, and I'm just saying if you go with scenario 2, and I'm not saying you all are, I'm just saying if you go with that scenario 2, it changes the districts. For me, from 2, 4, and 15, which 1, 2, and 3, and I don't know how that lines up with that. If that's going to change whether you all need to do that or not.
I think his concern is making sure that we don't do anything that contradicts what's going to the commission, full commission next Thursday night. which is what, if this does pass, is going to go to the election commission to look
That's
at
right.
and report back on Wednesday to us if it's going to change anything. So that
Mhm.
will take care of that problem if it is passed tonight.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Aaron Holliday, currently school board member from Zone 1. Last night, and reside in the city of Laverne. Last night I was at the Laverne Christmas concert, and my new friend John Gleason performed in that concert. He registered to vote today. He also lives in the city of Laverne. And he said, Aaron, won't you please come with me tomorrow to the redistricting meeting down at the courthouse? And so I made a point of coming this evening. I probably don't know all the details of things that you've looked at there, and I've enjoyed the meeting this evening. What does end tonight is the option and the possibility to be able to move the county commission districts so as to tweak those lines and maintain incumbency. If I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at Terry Hodges' house that happens to be in that scenario 2 alongside Chairman Mark Burns inside a district where they would be running against one another, and the line seems to be really close to his house. To whatever extent we value incumbency, we haven't necessarily shown it because we haven't looked at those individual roads to draw him in particular into Area 4 where there is no sitting school board member. And so as we talk about incumbency and the value of incumbency, I'd want to remind you that the value of incumbency is experience. There are some experienced county commissioners here who have been serving for a long time, and you bring something to the equation that is very, very valuable. How to get things done, a mentorship to new members, and that is important. I think we've zoomed in there now, and you can kind of see Terry Hodges' house right there. If we really value incumbency, then maybe like you've looked at that scenario over there in Almaville about tweaking for the issue of contiguous districts, maybe it's worth tweaking for incumbency and looking at that. But that option does end with the county commission meeting that's a week from tomorrow, because then at that point the recommendation has to go for the January 1st deadline.
Thank you.
That's good. Good point.
Anyone else like to speak?
That's a good point.
Hey, y'all have come all the way here. I'm sure somebody else wants to speak.
So Barbara, could we look to see the new map 2, the zone 5, Mr. McAdoo's zone, how hard it would be to change commission lines?
To protect the tenants. Change the commission lines? Or
Yes,
to
ma'am.
change the
County commission line?
Yes, ma'am. That's what Mr. Holliday said. That was his suggestion, looking at possibly tweaking lines just a little bit to fix the incumbency problem.
For the road and school board.
We,
Oh, cause
the
that's right.
county commission districts are protecting the incumbency as far as road, school, and county commission. They're staying in the districts that they have been in, if that answers your question.
As long as you don't change the zones. But in the scenario 2 proposal, you would change the zones. When you combine both a scenario 2 and your county commission redistricting, then the combination of those two create a situation where, as Mr. Evans suggested, you might have drawn the lines a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's under Commissioner Stevens' proposal right now. I think it's what you're talking about, this map 2. That Am I right? That's what we're talking about in what, Zone 5? Is that where his,
I think he's speaking to the point that you and Commissioner Jordan both made, which was perhaps with some slight tweaking to this map, to the number 2, that we could protect incumbency for road and school board and not have anybody, and not have 2 incumbents have to face off at a future election.
I see. I was thinking the presented map. Yes, it's protected now, but under that, it's not. That's what we was bringing up. That's why we had an issue with it. Yeah. I'm with you now. Sorry. If there's no other comments in, let's take about a 10-minute break until Mr. Cope comes back. And
The office is right
probably is.
Man's falling, he's frozen to death.
We are on break here for about 10 minutes, okay?
You know, that's the only place you can.
Okay, I want to call the meeting back into order after our 10-minute break, and our attorney, Mr. Cope, has our information for us.
Yes, Commissioner Schaefer's challenge is in order. It was correct. The majority vote was 5-4.
Yes.
So the motion did pass to approve, recommend map scenario 2 to go to the full commission. Robert's Rules of Order provides that as a default mechanism, it's a majority of those voting, which means more than half, and with an abstention or a blank, that doesn't factor in. So since it was 5-4 and 4 against, the motion carried. Now, with respect to how the county commission does it, by state law, it says that it has to be a majority of the members, regardless of the number voting. So under state law, you have 21 members, so you have to have 11 aye votes to adopt it. But that's not the case in Robert's Rules of Order, as long as it's just a majority of those members voting once you have a quorum. And clearly you have a quorum here. Had Mr. Evans changed his vote before the announcement of the result, when the secretary announced that 5-4-1, had he changed his vote, he would have had a right to change it up to that point in time. But once that vote was declared by the secretary, then that vote became final, and he did not have a right then to come back and change that vote at that point in time. He was locked in. Had there been a call to say, does anyone want to change their vote? Does anyone want to vote who didn't vote?
Right.
If he'd have changed at that point before the announcement, he could have changed. But once the vote was declared, he couldn't change. A majority did, in fact, support the motion, so the motion passed as presented. Again, that would not necessarily have applied. It wouldn't have applied to the county commission, because you wouldn't have had a majority of the 11 or have a member here, but you don't have that.
That's where I was coming from, but all
But
right.
a point of correction, you said to the full commission, but we sent it to the
I'm
election
sorry.
commission.
Okay, well, whatever the motion said, it passed.
Okay.
Are we saying it's election?
Report back
Oh, yeah,
next
she's going to
Wednesday.
review it and then bring it back to the
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday full commission. Okay.
No, next Wednesday here, not full commission.
Oh, next Wednesday here. Okay. Okay. Sorry, we meet next Thursday full commission. Okay. So it will be coming back here. We will be having another meeting next Wednesday night, 5 o'clock. Since this motion passes, is there any other business that this committee needs to address?
Let me just also, for a point of emphasis, in terms of your timing schedule, one thing that occurred to me when we were talking about if we deferred it and you'd still have time to look at road board and school board into the new year, and it wouldn't impact the election. We do have to, depending on what the election commission says about these terms of cycling. You remember on steering committee Monday night, we had to vote to change the terms of office and amend the private act.
Yes.
So we still would likely have to amend the private act on these terms of office. So that does become problematic, potentially, depending on how quickly the legislature can get that through.
I really think the election director needs to look at both of these, since this come from the election director and the election commission for us on steering, and really have this scenario as well as this map 2 scenario for us and the changes into this change
Try to marry the solutions.
for Wednesday night.
All of them, yeah,
Yes.
all of them, everything
Yes.
on the table.
Yes. So we'll have to skip a committee process and take it to full commission on our actions here next Wednesday night. If we have to tweak the zoning deal differently. So, okay. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second?
I'll second it.
Second. All right. We are adjourned.